All right, great. It's 12 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks to everybody who is joining us right now. Welcome to our event about job and internship scams, recognize and avoid. And we are the UCC, the University Career Center, and we are partnering today with the Information Security Office to talk about job and internship scams, which is very rampant right now, and we'll get into that later. But first, I'll go ahead and introduce our team. So specifically, we're the Experiential Programs team, and we work with internships and experiential learning opportunities. Our assistant director is Brianna. Amy is on the call. She's one of our administrative assistants. And my name is Elissa Ungerman, and I'm also an administrative assistant on this team. So just a quick agenda. We're going to cover some interesting facts and some did you knows. We're going to talk about how the UCC protects students from scams. And then we're going to hear from the expert in ISO, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end if you have any questions about any of the information that we cover today. So did you know that there's a $1,000 median reported loss between 2015 and 2020, and that adults aged 25 to 34 years old report higher exposure to employment scams? 14 million people exposed, with $2 million lost almost every year. 53% of people reported that they pursued jobs from scammers because they offered work from home opportunities. So that's a really important point, especially right now, because remote opportunities have increased with the onset of the pandemic. But a lot of these opportunities are not legitimate. So you have to be very careful about that. And then 65% of job offers were related to becoming a warehouse redistribution coordinator or some similar titles involving the reshipment of packages. Other titles include work from home and secret shopper opportunities. So make sure that you are aware of sketchy job titles like that. And all this information comes from the Better Business Bureau. And to continue, some interesting facts. 70% of those who engaged with employment scams received an official offer letter. 51% of people submitted a resume. 48% participated in a phone interview, and 32% performed work for which they were not paid. So here's an interesting statistic as well about some of the most reported online platforms of scam postings. The largest, as you can see, is Indeed. So be wary when you use Indeed.com during your job or internship search, because this is the location of a majority of scams. Then we have LinkedIn, Facebook, Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, Craigslist, Glassdoor. So even as the numbers go down, scams are hard to eliminate from job platforms. So it's always important to scrutinize every posting that you explore when you're searching for your career. So here's just a quick overview of what the University Career Center does to help prevent scams at UTD. So we do not share student email addresses, and we also follow additional steps to safeguard information that is within Handshake, which is the career platform that we use, if you did not know. We also have public profiles turned off by default in Handshake, so employers can only see active applicant information. So they cannot see your profile unless you actively have applied to their job posting. We also do not share student information or provide employers with resume books. So we don't share resumes, we don't share cover letters, or any other crucial student information. We just don't do that. We encourage employers to go through Handshake and do recruitment efforts through that, through career fairs, and through information sessions on Handshake or in person as we transition back to in-person functions. We also follow a multi-step verification process for new employer registrations. Employers have to apply to have a profile, And then each job posting also has to be applied, or it also has to be approved on Handshake. And we do that by hand in the University Career Center. We also allow employers to post only full-time degree-required jobs and internships that meet the Department of Labor standards. So as I mentioned, we go through by hand and make sure that each job posting meets the Department of Labor standards and also meets these other requirements. The Handshake system includes a peer notification system, so colleagues at other colleges and universities may notify us of suspicious activity. And the system also uses geolocation to verify IP addresses, along with a checklist to review suspicious postings. So as you can see, we really do our best to review everybody with a lot of scrutiny and make sure that scams are not posted to Handshake. So we definitely do our best to avoid employers reaching students through Handshake. Now I'm going to pass it over to Renee to introduce the Information Security Office.
Good afternoon. I'm Renee Stone, and as she said, I work with the Information Security Office here at UT Dallas. Prior to joining the ISO 4 years ago, my background was in law enforcement. So there's constantly, then and now, a rise in identity theft, property theft, cybersecurity attacks. So we're happy to be here today to talk to you a little bit about how you can protect yourself. The ISO serves the UD Dallas community by ensuring that duties can be performed in a low-risk environment, and our team of analyst experts and security operations center team members are always working hard to provide risk mitigation. That's done through awareness training such as today, technical solutions, security controls, and regulatory compliance. Nick McCormick is one of our highly qualified managers, and he's going to be monitoring the chat to answer your questions. Andy Cummings is one of our specialized analysts, who will be presenting to you today. So Andy, let's get started.
Righto, let's have the next slide, please. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for coming. There's a brief bio, I guess, on me, on my background. I've been around the world doing weird jobs, weird careers, a lot of unusual experience, perhaps. I have to take exception, though, as a bit of an aside, to being referred to as an expert. You know, in the UK, where I was born, we define an expert in two things. You know, an X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So I'm not quite sure that qualifies. All right, next slide, please. Let's get into the meat of this thing, and the next one again, please. All right, this will be a typical example of the kind of email that you may see. Some of them have fancy graphics, some of them are very plain, but you'll notice here that this seems to come from a Dr. Campbell with a UT Dallas email address, which is actually rather unusual, as you'll see later on. But the claim here is work from home, get paid, 350 smackers a week, send this guy more information. Looks legit, right? How could a Dr. Campbell at UT Dallas be a phony? So we'll pick this apart. Next slide, please. In order to understand this, you should have a little bit of an idea of who's behind this. So these are typically criminal gangs. They've stolen an absolute ton of money, and now they need to launder it. We're all familiar with people in the movies and whatever, right? They've stolen some stuff and they now have to clean it by laundering it through a fence or something like that. The danger is that you are about to become their fence if you fall for this. So essentially, they've got $5 million. They need to scatter that money and clean it, so the money comes out clean on the other side, and they can then make use of it. Next slide, please. Okay, so Dr. John Campbell, this is going to be probably a little bit more complex than you may imagine at first. But once again, look at that email address, dr.campbell@utdallas.edu. Once again, it sounds perfectly legit so far. Next slide. Now, hidden inside every email is something called mail headers. Okay, these things track and record the route through which that email passes along the internet. In other words, the originating IP, the mail servers involved, etc., etc. But if we look at this relevant section that I've put in color of that particular mail header, you'll notice there's in blue, there's an African IP address, 160.152, etc. at the top. The next line mentions hostgator.com.br. You'll be familiar, the BR is Brazil. So that's a Brazilian mail server. The next line, envelope from Dr. Campbell at UT Dallas. Already this is starting to look weird. Why would an African IP address be using a Brazilian mail server to use a UT Dallas email address? And then in red at the bottom, you'll notice that the reply to, in other words, whenever you reply to that email, it will go to a Gmail account. So I would encourage you to learn a little bit about analyzing mail headers. It's not really that difficult once you have a little bit of practice. But overall, that initially legitimate appearing email is not legitimate at all. Once again, it was sent from an IP address in Africa through a Brazilian mail server. It spoofed or faked a UT Dallas email address, and any replies go to a Gmail account. So obviously very, very fishy here. So next slide, please. And this would be the kind of thing that we get almost every day, okay? For that particular email, this is what the person claimed, that Dr. John Campbell, quote unquote, sent them a check for $1,800. And at least the student was kind of suspicious and reported it to us. This is the only way that we knew that this thing even existed. So $1,800, that's a lot of money for somebody that you've never met, you've never gone to a job interview for, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of weird. Who's going to trust somebody they've never met with $1,800? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and that's the actual check that this person received. And the weird thing is that the check was actually legitimate in the sense that it didn't bounce. You know, money is in that account. So if this student had deposited this check into their own account, they would have gotten that $1,870. The problem was that they would have then been using stolen money, which is a huge problem, as you'll see later on. Okay, next slide, please. This is another example. This one is a little bit too big to show, but it has fancy graphics all along the top, et cetera, looks pretty cool, pretty legit. It mentions, you know, you'll be somebody's personal assistant. They're working in Australia. They're implying that they are not in the country, so they won't be able to meet you, but you can work for them in the meantime. That sort of thing is a huge red flag. Okay, you've got to know who you're working for. You know, someone who claims to be overseas, a lot of these scammers do it. That is enormous. We'll go through some steps that you can look at on the next slide to start identifying how these things can be a scam. But $620 a week, heck, who doesn't like that extra money? Next slide, please. Okay, once again, you've got to know who you're dealing with, okay? So look for those free email addresses: Gmail, iCloud, Yahoo, AOL. AOL is not free, I guess, but anyone can open them up, it looks like. But you've got to know who these are. Just because someone claims to be a professor, a doctor, whatever, they'll try and spin some kind of story to enhance their credibility. Next slide, please. Okay, and once again, look at the context. If this person claims to be a professor or a doctor, as they do so often, look at the email address from which they're sending. You know, if somebody is claiming to be from the university, they should have a utdallas.edu address. Again, that can be spoofed. I refer you back to what we saw earlier on. So the ability to analyze mail headers a little bit is always useful. But generally, they don't bother to spoof UT Dallas addresses. 99 times out of 100, it will be Gmail, it will be iCloud, it will be Yahoo, those sort of things. So next slide. Okay, here we get down into the meat and potatoes. Other than the email address from which they're sending, be suspicious if they're offering you good money. Okay, there was an old novel, I think it was Heinlein, that said there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Very, very true, particularly these days. So when they claim to be that there's very good money and they actually mention that, most legitimate companies don't tell you what a salary would be right up front. They wait for you to apply, you go through negotiations, and then voila. But they always try to entice people with large sums of money. You know, $640 a week, that's quite a lot. They always have an excuse not to meet with you. Oh, I'm helping the poor in Canada, or, you know, I'm helping disabled children in Australia. It's all a smokescreen, okay? They often also want you to change immediately from an email to, hey, send me your cell phone number so I can text you. That is their way of trying to maintain control and access to you, even if people like me shut off that email. I've discovered something, I block the email address or whatever, they still have a way to get hold of you. So be super suspicious if somebody's offering you a job and they're wanting your cell phone number so they can continue by text or by instant message or some other medium of communication. If you actually receive a check, this is typically a PDF and they ask you to print it out, that's red flag number one. Who is going to send you $1,800 as you saw from a year ago, just right out of the blue? So that should, you know, make your spidey senses tingle straight away. And once you've received the check, this person carries on hammering you with a huge sense of urgency. Get it done today, get it done today. Your promotion depends on this, or, you know, you're going to lose, you know, whatever. That is them basically trying to get the money out of the stolen bank accounts before the Secret Service, the FBI, etc., close down that bank account or even the bank themselves. So there's always an element of haste in these things. So next slide, please. Now, I get asked this one a lot. Why should I care? You know, and apart from the obvious moral issues that may be involved, there are severe consequences that you should be aware of. You could be charged with a felony, money laundering, taking part in an ongoing criminal enterprise, etc. And you'll notice I mentioned massive legal bills. And I've had folks say to me, but I'm innocent. I didn't know this money was stolen. You know, why should I be responsible for these bills? The point is, attorneys have to get paid whether you're innocent or guilty. To defend against a felony, from what I believe from some attorneys I know, starts at $50,000. That is up front, and you're not getting that money back. So guilty or innocent, that money is gone. So either you, your parents, whatever, will have to front that money. In many cases, put a lien on the house or whatever, take out a massive loan, excuse me. That's a lot of money. And once again, I've got to reiterate, even if you're found innocent, you will not get that money back. That's gone. All right. Point number two, you assume legal liability for all of these transferred funds. The banks are not your friend in this instance. We've had a couple of students where their bank account has been frozen. Let's say they've transferred $5,000 of stolen funds. Their bank puts them on the hook for that $5,000, and that is legally enforceable. The charge there, what the banks call it, is engaging in an ongoing criminal enterprise. They don't care that you are innocent, okay? They see it as a way of making money from you. So I'm not going to get into the morals and ethics of the banking business, but they will seriously try and nail you on this. Point number three, if you are a foreigner like I am, your F1 student visa, etc., could be lost. The feds have many ways of making people's lives miserable. But imagine losing your student visa to be here in the US. That would be incredibly bad. The school itself might even kick you out with sufficient evidence. Unlikely, but it's possible that it could happen. Your credit score will be affected, okay? The banks report this to each other through this thing called the checks system. So even if you graduate with that horrible credit score, you being on the check system, plus being on the hook for this $5,000. Good luck finding an apartment, getting a car, getting a good job, etc., etc. Okay, you don't want to fall into this trap. This will follow you around for years, and it's a nightmare to get out of. Lastly, I mentioned physical threats. I'm not fond of going here because I don't want to scare people. But some of the students with whom I've spoken in the past have been threatened. A number of these gangs will ask for your home address. The claim is so that they can mail you the check physically to your front door. Really what that is, it's a way for them to attempt to compromise you through fear. We had one young lady about 5 years ago. She eventually had worked her way up the chain to about almost $15,000 worth of transfer. And at the last second, she refused to transfer that one. And they sent her a photograph of the front door of her apartment. Okay. And they threatened to, mutilate her, etc., if she didn't transfer that money. So some of these people do not play around. This is mafia type stuff. So don't be fooled into thinking that, oh, well, hey, why do I care that this money was stolen from somebody else? There are serious consequences for this. Again, I'm not trying to scare you or terrify you at all. I just need you to understand that this is big leagues. These people are playing with millions of dollars, and they don't want to get the reputation that people can steal money from them. Okay. Right. Any questions so far? Nothing yet? Okay, next one, please. Right, how to get out of it. A lot of people will actually respond to the scammer and say, hey, my name is John Smith, and this sounds very exciting and very cool. Here's my email address, here's my phone number, etc. And then all of a sudden they get a bad feeling, go, hang on, is this a scam? Are they going to steal money from me, or am I doing something illegal, or what is going on? They get a bad vibe and they call us or they email us saying, hey, does this look legit, or what's going on? The number one thing that I always tell people is, for Pete's sake, if they send you a check, do not cash it. Don't be a numpty, okay? Don't be someone who's naive. Don't cash the check. That keeps you out of so much trouble. It's just not funny, okay? That way the banks can't come after you and imply that you're a felon, you're engaging in this criminal enterprise. So that's your number one defense. Do not cash it. Please, please, please. Number two, report it to your local police department. In our case, that would be UT Dallas PD if you're on campus. If you're in Plano PD. If you're out in, I don't know, Cape Town, South Africa, go to the Cape Town police. Wherever you are, get that on paper, because how the police operate is the person who comes to them they see it as the complainant. 99.9% of people who come to them about a criminal case are not the criminals themselves. These are the victims. So you want the police to view you as the victim. You get that case number, you get that on file. That way, if a bank ever comes after you or whatever, you can show them that, hey, I reported this thing to the police. Here's my case number. I am the innocent party. So you want that as a matter of record, just to cover your own backside on that. Can I say backside on this? It's not a cuss word in English. Okay. Number three, sever all contact with the gang. This is super critical. A lot of these folks will receive text messages, emails, etc. The good news is it only lasts a couple of days. Why? Essentially, again, look at the context of this situation. These bad guys are trying to transfer millions of dollars of stolen money. They don't have time to waste on people who are non-responsive, because they've learned through experience that those non-responsive people are suspicious and basically will not cooperate. They've only got a couple of days to get all this dirty money out of that bank account before the feds close it down. So they won't waste time with you. They may send you 2 or 3 text messages or emails. After that, they drop you like a hot potato and then move on to the next person. So, block all contact with these folks. If you get a text message, delete it, or just ignore it. If you get an email, ignore it, etc., etc. Keep those in a folder as evidence in case something ever comes up. But generally, if you just do not respond to these folks, you are quite safe. Now, you'll notice point number 4, the privacy flag. You say privacy or privacy here in the US? Okay, call it privacy flag. That is a thing that Help Desk, the UT Dallas Help Desk, can help you with if you call them at extension 2911 or email assist@UT Dallas. I'd strongly suggest calling them because there are implications. The privacy flag is a setting in your NetID account which prevents your email address and other things from being published on the UT Dallas directory. And we're pretty sure that's where these bad guys are getting people's email addresses from. If you ever get one of these job scam emails, you may see a couple hundred of your fellow Comets email addresses on that. Let's say my name was John Smith. There might be John J. Smith at UT Dallas, John M. Smith at UT Dallas. You'll see that the email addresses are pretty much alphabetical in order. That's because we believe that they're looking at the UT Dallas directory that you'll see at utdallas.edu/directory. And you can put in the letter of someone's first name, last name, student, staff, whatever, and you'll find all the information there. So consider adding the privacy flag. That will keep you off that directory. But again, I would urge you to speak with Help Desk, as there are other things that it may affect. So you need to be forewarned and forearmed as to potential consequences of that. Okay, we don't see any questions so far, so next slide, please. Okay, I'll let you read this through yourself. I'm not going to bore you by reading it along, but a quick checklist on how to check stuff. Okay, who actually sent this? Is there some kind of URL? Is there a sense of urgency? Is there an attachment? We all should be aware that attachments could be malware, etc. Viruses, Trojans, etc. Is it requesting my personal info? Am I sending this info to some dude with a Gmail address? Come on. And overall, does it feel weird? The bottom line is, if it feels weird, it usually is. Trust your instincts. They're trying to tell you something. Your little sixth sense are usually little clues that you're picking up subconsciously, subliminally, whatever, alerting you, telling you, hang on, this doesn't feel cool. Listen to that sixth sense. And next page, please. And my chat is done. Questions and answers. Hit me. All right, I see nothing coming through.
Feel free to put your questions in the chat or unmute yourself and ask a question.
In the meantime, the Information Security Office contact details are there. We're at extension 6810. That will probably go to voicemail due to COVID. Email address is very simple, infosecurity, obviously at UT Dallas. And our website, utdallas.edu/infosecurity.
Andy, I do have something. I know our front desk at the Career Center receive quite a few calls, wondering if, oh, this email is legit, or oh, this job offer is legit. If they do get one, sending it to that email is the best route, right?
It is. Okay. What happens, that email then gets converted into a ticket, and we have a ticketing system, basically a web page driven ticketing system, where all of our staff can see it. So anybody can see that email and respond to it. 9 times out of 10, it'll be me. I seem to be the resident, subject matter, not expert, remember? But the subject matter dude for this particular type of thing. And as much information in that email as possible. I can then look on a separate system and see if other people have received it. And 99 times out of 100, I can actually get rid of that email from people's inboxes. Right now, I'm allowed to move it to deleted items. I'm not allowed to delete it entirely. This was part of a deal that we made with Tim Shaw, the university attorney. I do have to stress, when we do this, we're not seeing inside people's inboxes. Tim Shaw, the attorney, is very big on student privacy, and actually, oddly enough, so are we at the Info Security Office. People see us as this, cyber cop. We can see anything and we can look at anything. Well, potentially we could, but A, it's a lot of work, and B, we don't want to. We're all grown adults here. We don't care where you go on the internet, and we're certainly not prying through your email. When I search for this email, I'm looking for that specific sender, and it just gives me a list of everyone who has received that email. So that's all that I can see. I cannot see people's inboxes. But yeah, to get back to your question, the best way is simply to forward that email to infosecurity@utdallas.edu. We will take care of the rest. If I happen to need any more information, for example, I can't see the mail headers, I will respond with further instructions to that. This issue has been going on for well nigh on 6 years now, so we're very conversant with the procedures of these gangs. We track them quite closely. The problem is that they open up a lot of new email addresses. I have this massive database, and I track them very, very closely on a daily basis. So we should be able to take care of, or rather confirm a threat and take care of it. We will let you know. If it seems to be legit, I will say so. If it's an out and out, obvious known scam, I will tell you that as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I see Renee has her hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Andy. I just want to add that please feel free to visit our webpage, where we have a blog with a lot of topics that might be of interest to you, including student loan repayment scams. Due to the president's extension of the federal student loan payment plan, there have been some scams attached to that. I don't even have a student loan, and I received the scam on my phone. So it's just things that can give you a heads up to look for there. Portable computing device security, how to deal with other types of unemployment scams, just a whole lot of different topics that I think that your audience might find interesting.
Thank you so much, Renee. That's really great information. And also, as you mentioned, if you all caught it earlier, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So make sure you look out for some information either from us or from Information Security Office. And they're going to be sharing just a lot of information that's kind of an extension of what we talked about today. But yeah, if you ever have any questions, if you're ever not sure, before you respond back to quote unquote an employer, make sure that you reach out to either us or Information Security and just double check, because it's better to double check than to get scammed. So please, Amy posted their website. Thank you so much, Amy. But since there aren't any other questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up today. We'll keep it short. Thank you so much again, Andy, Renee, and Nick, for being here. Make sure you all connect with the Information Security Office, because they are so great at what they do, and we're always just so thankful for their partnership. So thank you all again.
Very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.